बड़ी और आपका आज
स्वागत है।
आज जो वीडियो हम लेकर आए उसका टाइटल है
इंडियाज नेक्स्ट इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस सुपर एल नीनो 2026 केस स्टडी।
तो चलिए देख लेते हैं ये वीडियो, लेकिन इससे पहले
इस वीडियो चैनल का ओरिजिनल लिंक आपको हमारी वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन मिल जाएगा। सब्सक्राइब के, लाइक के, शेयर को फॉलो इनके चैनल को। उसके अलावा हम लोग चैनल लिंक स्ट्रीम लिंक भी हमारी वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन मिल जाएगा। सब्सक्राइब के, लाइक के, शेयर को फॉलो करें।
चलिए देख लेते हैं ये वीडियो।
साथियों, आज भारत तेजी से विकसित होने के लक्ष्य की तरफ आगे बढ़ रहा है, लेकिन इस समय भारत कई विराट चुनौतियों का मुकाबला भी कर रहा है।
Ladies and gentlemen, a few weeks ago, the Prime Minister of India stood at a podium and said something that makes no economic sense.
साथियों, हमें पेट्रोल डीजल का उपयोग कम करना होगा। हमें विदेशी मुद्रा बचाने के जो भी रास्ते हम लोग अपना सकते हैं, हमें बचाना होगा।
It is the Prime Minister who has said
कम से कम एक साल के लिए हमें विदेशों में जाने की बातों को टालना चाहिए।
Now, if you think about it for a second, the leader of the world's fifth largest economy, a man whose entire job is to grow consumption, just told this country to stop consuming. The headlines called it caution. The newspapers called it nationalism. But here's the thing that nobody's telling you. That speech wasn't just about oil. That speech wasn't just about gold. That speech was about the West Asia crisis.
War is having ripple effects around the world. Wholesale inflation is up, and it's a dramatic jump in just 1 month.
The war in West Asia is clearly now reaching India's kitchen economy. Vegetable oil prices are surging.
Now, while most people see it only as a speech of caution, what nobody's telling you is that there's another crisis that is forming 12,000 kilometers from India in the Pacific Ocean. And it is about to hit India in a way that we've never seen before. Look at this stretch of the Pacific Ocean. This patch of warm water has a name. Scientists call it the El Nino. And what is forming this year is the rarest and the most dangerous version of El Nino, which is called the Super El Nino.
Right now, across the Pacific Ocean, something is happening that could change the world's weather.
Scientists are warning that the next shock could come from nature, a Super El Nino.
Are saying that El Nino is likely to happen, and this event will be strong.
Now, scientists call it dangerous because the last time this happened was in 1876, and it was such a disaster that the monsoon rains collapsed for 2 years in a row, crops failed, 58 million Indians, almost the entire population of modern Italy, ran out of food. Eventually, 5 to 10 million Indians were killed. And Super El Nino also wiped off 3 to 4% of the entire world's population. In fact, Super El Nino also caused the Great Famine of 1876. Now here's the part that should worry every single Indian watching this video. That same patch of ocean, that same anomaly is forming again right now in May 2026. And the most powerful weather agencies just agreed on something that they almost never agree on. They all said the exact same thing. This El Nino could be the strongest El Nino ever recorded in human history. And the worst part is, this El Nino is hitting India while it's already bleeding from an oil crisis. So in this case study, I want to cover what most media companies hide from you until the crisis hits. What exactly is Super El Nino? How does a warm patch of water far away in the Pacific Ocean affect India? Why does it cause crop failures and food shortages in India? And lastly, what can India actually do to protect itself from this crisis?
People, if you have an insurance policy, there are some hidden pitfalls that you all need to check right now. Last year, my friend got detected with kidney stone. He got admitted into the hospital. He paid his insurance bills on time and had a cover of 5 lakh rupees. But even then, he was shocked to know that his claim got rejected. You know why? Because as it turns out, kidney stone requires a waiting period of 2 years. Similarly, if your policy caps room rent at 5,000 rupees a day, and you take a 10,000 rupees per day room, the insurer uses proportional deduction to cut your entire bill from surgery to ICU to medicines to even consultations by 50%. So a claim of 5 lakh rupees could be reduced to just 2.5 lakh rupees. And all this information would be a disaster if you get to hear it at 2 a.m. in a hospital while you or your family member is bleeding. So please do yourself and your family a favor and get your health insurance checked by Ditto from the link in the description. This consultation is absolutely free. It will take you only 20 minutes and Ditto never spam calls you. Ditto is a Zerodha-backed startup and they are by far the most trusted insurance broker in the country. In fact, I have bought my and my family's health insurance from Ditto. The best part is, if your claim ever gets denied, Ditto will step in and help you out with the process so that if your claim is genuine, no insurance company can fool you. And if you haven't bought a health insurance policy, you are making a big mistake. So use the link in the description, book a call with Ditto, and please buy a health insurance for yourself and your family. Also guys, if you've had a great experience with Ditto, please drop a comment so that great companies like Ditto get promoted over the shady companies that exist in the industry right now. Well, before we understand what a super El Nino is and how it can affect us, you guys need to understand why is the monsoon so important for India. You see, every year by May, India is hot, humid and thirsty. And every Indian, from a farmer in Vidarbha to the share trader in Mumbai, is secretly waiting for the exact same thing: monsoons. Then, around the first week of June, something absolutely incredible happens. A wall of moisture and clouds rise above the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean and they slam into India. And we call it the monsoon. For the next 4 months, it provides rains to farms all over India. So from Punjab's wheat to Maharashtra's cotton to Assam's tea, monsoons provide 80% of India's water requirement. And monsoon is very important to the Indian economy because in spite of India being the 5th largest economy in the world, in spite of India having 130 unicorns, India is still an agricultural economy. And even though agriculture may just look like 17% of India's GDP, it employs 43% of India's total workforce. And 44% of India's farmlands have no canals, no tube wells and no irrigation schemes. So they all depend on rain and rain alone. Look at this. This is the irrigation status of states in India. Maharashtra is just at 18%, Karnataka is at 37%, and even Tamil Nadu is at just 56%. This is why every year a farmer like Ramesh in central Maharashtra does the exact same thing. In April, he plows his land, in May, he buys seeds on credit, and in June, he just looks up at the sky, hoping that it rains on time. Because everything in his life depends literally on those clouds. His daughter's wedding in November, his son's school fees in July, and the 80,000 rupee EMI on the tractor, all of it depend on clouds. And you know what, guys? There are 600 million such people in this country. So when the monsoons are generous, this is what happens to the Indian economy. Good rain gives good harvest, which results into farmer income. Income leads to purchase of tractors, scooters, soap and clothes. And this demand runs the factories. Eventually, India's GDP rises. In fact, rural India alone contributes to 37% of overall FMCG spends in this country. So when the monsoon fails, no rain results into no crop, results into no income, results into no spending. Eventually, the factories slow down and the GDP of India collapses. In fact, the Asian Development Bank actually put a number on this. 1% more rain equal to 0.16% more GDP. Now keep that number in your mind because what I'm about to show you is going to scare you. A super El Nino is forming right now and India is directly in its path.
India's monsoon may fall short in 2026.
A number of climate models are calling for the possibility of a super El Nino brewing this summer.
This could actually hit your food prices, your electricity bill, and even your daily life.
Now remember the famine that I told you about at the start of the video? The one that killed 5 to 10 million Indians in 1876 and wiped off 3 to 4% of the entire human population? That famine was triggered by a super El Nino of this exact scale. And what scientists are seeing forming right now in the Pacific. And because of the super El Nino, IMD has already predicted 8% less rain than normal in India.
In fact, in the last 75 years, only 5 super El Ninos have hit our planet, and every single one of them broke India's economy. In 1972, GDP growth crashed to negative 0.6%. In 1987, India had to import a lot of wheat. In 2002, GDP growth fell from 6% to 4%, and in 2015, food inflation hit 6 to 7%, and 12,000 farmers took their own lives. In fact, 10 out of the 12 worst droughts in India since 1950 were caused by El Nino. But this still doesn't answer the question as to how the hell does a random patch of water warming up in an ocean 12,000 kilometers away from India cause such a massive damage to our economy? Let me explain. Before I take you to the Pacific, I need you to understand a very simple concept, because once you get this, you will understand the entire monsoon, El Nino story, and every climate story you will ever read will start making sense to you. Now, I want you to imagine something very simple. You are in a small room during a summer in India. The power just went off, the fan stops, and the AC stops. And within minutes, the air becomes thick, heavy, and unbearable. So what will you do? You walk to the window and you open it. And what happens after that? The hot, stuffy air rushes out through the top, and the cool air outside rushes in through the bottom. That's it. That is the entire science of wind on planet Earth. Now, why does it happen? Because hot air is light, so it rises and it escapes. But when it leaves behind an empty space. This empty space is called a low pressure zone. At the same time, the cool air outside is heavier, it's packed and it's dense. And that becomes a high pressure zone. And the rule is pretty simple. Wind always flows from high pressure to low pressure. And this happens no matter what time or which planet you're talking about. That's it. That's the rule. Now hold on to this concept, because now we're about to apply it to something as big as a subcontinent. You see, every year the Indian subcontinent is on fire. The Thar Desert hits 48 degrees Celsius, the Deccan Plateau hits 45 degrees Celsius, and the Indo-Gangetic plains are burning. And India becomes that hot, stuffy, crowded room. So the hot air over the land starts rising and it escapes upward. And it leaves behind a giant low pressure zone over the entire country. Now, if you're a science student, you would know that land heats up faster than water. So while India's land heats up, the Indian Ocean is like the cool world outside the window, with temperatures ranging between 28 degrees to 30 degrees. So the air over the cool Indian Ocean stays heavy and packed. So the ocean becomes a giant high pressure zone, and India's land becomes a burning room with low pressure. Now, how does air flow from high pressure to low pressure? So in June, the high pressure air sitting over the Indian Ocean rushes in to fill the low pressure vacuum over India. And while rushing in, it picks up water, and for the next 4 months, it dumps that water on Punjab, Karnataka, Assam and Maharashtra, and on Ramesh field. That is how India gets its monsoon season. But here's what almost nobody knows. The Indian monsoon doesn't just run on one window, it runs on 2 windows. And the second window is 12,000 kilometers away. And here's where El Nino comes in. Look, this is the Pacific Ocean, and in a normal year, there are these powerful winds called trade winds. Trade winds blow from east to west. They start from the coast of Peru and Ecuador and finally reach Indonesia, the Philippines and northern Australia. This is because, in very, very simple terms, the sun heats up the surface water of the Pacific near South America off the coast of Peru and Ecuador, and as these trade winds keep blowing, they push the warm surface water of the Pacific westward, piling it up near Indonesia and northern Australia. And this is what makes our monsoon strong. Why? Let's go back to our hot room concept. The warm pool near Indonesia is basically a second hot room, and just like India, from here the hot air rises and escapes upwards. This leaves behind another giant low pressure zone. But this one is over the Pacific next to Indonesia, which means a second window opens. And this second low pressure zone pulls in even more moist wind from across the Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea straight towards India. So our monsoon doesn't just run on one low pressure pull, it runs on 2 low pressure pull. Pull 1 is from India itself, with the summer between March and May creating low pressure over the subcontinent. Pull 2 comes from warm pool near Indonesia due to the trade winds creating low pressure over Western Pacific. So 2 low pressure vacuums pull moisture from India and boost the monsoon. This is in the normal world. But every few years, the trade winds break, and this is where the disaster starts. Sometimes these trade winds weaken and sometimes they reverse. And when this happens, this warm pool stops moving west. In fact, it starts sliding back east, so far east that it goes past Hawaii all the way back to South America. And here's where the disaster begins. That second hot room, the one that was sitting next to India that was pulling moisture in, it picks up, walks across the Pacific and sets up next to Peru. Which means 3 things happen at the exact same moment. The low pressure zone next to India completely disappears. The window that was pulling moisture from the Pacific gets shut. And worst of all, where there used to be a low pressure zone near Indonesia, that now becomes a high pressure zone. So the system hasn't just broken, it has flipped. This pattern is called El Nino, or the little boy, as a reference to the baby Jesus. But unfortunately, there is nothing little about what it does to a country like India. You see, the intensity of El Nino is measured with temperature difference. When the Pacific near Peru warms up by 0.5 degrees Celsius, scientists call it as El Nino. When it crosses 1.5 degrees Celsius, it becomes a strong El Nino. But when it crosses 2 degrees Celsius, it's called a super El Nino. But in 2026, forecasts show that the Pacific is heading towards 2.5 degrees Celsius above normal. So this will not just be a super El Nino, it will be the strongest El Nino ever recorded in human history. And this El Nino will hit India's monsoon in 3 ways. Remember our rule? Wind flows from high pressure to low pressure. Hot land creates low pressure, the cool ocean creates high pressure, so the air moves from high to low pressure, carries water, and that's how monsoon happens in India. But now, El Nino breaks that rule 3 times. It hits us in 3 ways at the exact same time. Attack 1. The Indian Ocean cooks itself. The whole planet heats up during an El Nino, which means the Indian Ocean, our high pressure zone, stops being cool. As its temperature climbs, the high pressure weakens, and as the gap between high and low pressure shrinks, the wind loses its reason to rush in. So no rush of wind means no moisture flying across the sea, no moisture means no clouds means less rain over India. Attack number 2. The second window flips. The warm pool near Indonesia, the one creating the second pool, runs east to Peru. And in its place, a high pressure zone builds up over Indonesia. So the pressure system doesn't just disappear, it inverts. So the monsoon engine starts running in reverse. So instead of a second window pulling moisture into India, there is now a wall pushing it away from India, which again means less rain over India. Attack number 3, the trade winds die. As fewer trade winds cross the equator, less moisture is pushed towards India. And the little rain that does come, it arrives late, weak and patchy. All of this is expected to happen in August and September, which is exactly when our crops need water the most. So late rain can't save a dying crop, weak rain can't refill a dried well, and patchy rain can't feed 600 million people working in agriculture. This is the crisis that is about to hit India. So the question is, what can India do to prevent this? Well, it's actually pretty straightforward. Our farmers cannot depend on just rain. We need drip irrigation systems, we need sprinkler systems, and we need solar-powered micro irrigation systems. And for that, we need the government to build incredible infrastructure. Secondly, as we mentioned in our $4 trillion lie case study, we cannot have 40% of our population only dependent on agriculture. We need to graduate our people from agriculture to manufacturing to IPs, just like South Korea. So we cannot let a random current from across the ocean decide the fate of 600 million people in our country. So are we prepared for this El Nino of 2026? Well, as of 1st April 2026, the Food Corporation of India is sitting on 604 lakh tons of wheat and rice, nearly 3 times the mandatory buffer of 210 lakh tons. This is the single biggest difference between 2026 and 1876. Apart from this, there are several measures that the government has taken, as you can see on the screen. But again, if 40% of our lands are not irrigated at all, which is the root cause of all problems, we are only preparing for the aftermath of the disaster, but not to prevent the disaster itself. This is the story of El Nino and India's position at this moment. And I just hope the government does something and India is able to pass through this crisis with minimum damage. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube ever happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.
So वेदर कंडीशन की बात करें तो वाकई में पूरी दुनिया में काफ़ी ज़्यादा आपको चेंज नज़र आ रहा है. और एल नीनो की अगर हम लोग बात करें तो हमने इससे पहले प्रशांत धवन सर की वीडियो देखी थी जिसमें उन्होंने एल नीनो के बारे में बताया था. और इवन कि मैंने आज ही आई थिंक सुबह में सोशल मीडिया पर ही देखा है कि दुनिया के 50 सबसे ज़्यादा टेम्परेचर वाले जो शहर हैं वो इंडिया में ही आए हैं कल। अब ऑब्वियसली इंडिया इतना बड़ा है तो वो उस तरीके से चीज़ जो है मतलब आप कह लो कि उसमें
इम्पैक्ट हो रहा है,
नहीं मतलब कि एक तरह से होता है ना कि नंबर 1 नंबर 2 लिस्ट डाउन जिस तरह से होती हैं चीज़ें।
टोटल पहले 50 वो इंडिया गई हैं
जहाँ तक मैंने सुना है, मैं गलत भी हो सकती हूँ, आप कमेंट सेक्शन में बता सकते हैं, ऐसा मैंने कुछ सुना है। अभी जैसे ये वीडियो मतलब पोस्ट देखी थी ऐसे, अभी जो ये वीडियो हम लोगों ने देखी है उससे तो ये लग रहा है कि वाकई में जो एल नीनो है वो काफ़ी डेंजरस है। और जैसे उन्होंने पास्ट की भी एग्जांपल दी और उस टाइम पर जो फेमाइन आया, मुझे तो पता नहीं, ये लग रहा है कि कुछ ना कुछ तो होता ही जा रहा है दुनिया में। कभी जंगें हो रही हैं, जंगों के इम्पैक्ट नज़र आ रहे हैं, फिर उसके बाद इस तरह के हम लोगों के फेमाइन, मतलब इट्स लाइक फेमाइन ना। बट एक चीज़ मैं पूछना चाहूँगी, हम लोग जो ट्रैवल व्लॉग्स देखते हैं इंडिया के, वहाँ पर इतनी बड़ी बड़ी हम लोग नदियाँ देखते हैं, तो इस तरह का कोई सिस्टम नहीं बन सकता कि लाइक जहाँ पर किसानों के लिए जो पानी है वो प्रोवाइड किया जा सके, मतलब नहरें निकाल कर, और मतलब क्या आपाशी होता था ना बचपन में, हम क्या कहते थे?
हाँ, आपाशी से कहते हैं। हाँ। लेकिन जो है देखिए नहरें कितनी जो है वो निकालेंगे, ज़मीन बहुत बड़ी है, नहरें भी उस तरह सपोर्ट जो है वो नहीं कर पाएंगे, क्योंकि वाटर रिसोर्सेज की भी अगर बात की जाए तो वो एक लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेज हैं। क्योंकि ये चीज़ हम देखते हैं कि पानी कभी कहीं पर कमी हो रही है, कभी कहीं पर कमी हो रही है, तो उसे लेकर भी जो है वो काफ़ी ज़्यादा विवाद होता है। और इतना आसान नहीं है इस चीज़ को जो है वो करना, बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम टेकिंग चीज़ है। करंट टाइम में देखें तो हाँ भाई, वेस्ट एशिया में आपको जो है वो काफ़ी ज़्यादा जो है वो डिस्टर्बेंस नज़र आती है। फिर उसके साथ साथ जो है क्लाइमेट चेंज जो है वो भी एक दुनिया के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा ख़तरे की चीज़ है, क्योंकि हम हर साल जो है वो ये चीज़ सुनते हैं, क्लाइमेट चेंज जो है वो हो रहा है, ग्लेशियर्स बहुत तेज़ी से पिघल रहे हैं, पानी की कमी हो रही है। चिंता हर कंट्री इस चीज़ को लेकर जो है वो जुटाता है, लेकिन मेरा ख्याल है कि जो अदारे हैं उनको जो है ना प्रैक्टिकली चीज़ों को जो है वो करने की ज़रूरत है। अभी एल नीनो की बात की जाए तो नो डाउट जब बारिशें नहीं होती तब भी बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान होता है, और जब ज़रूरत से ज़्यादा बारिशें हो जाती हैं तब भी बहुत ज़्यादा नुकसान होता है। तो इनमें भी मेरा ख्याल है मैनेजमेंट की जो है ना वो बहुत ज़्यादा यहाँ पर देखा जाए ना तो एक अहम भूमिका होती है। उसकी रीज़न ये है कि भाई अगर ज़्यादा बारिशें हो जाती तो पानी स्टोर करने के लिए जो है ना स्पेस होनी चाहिए, ताकि वो नेक्स्ट टाइम जो है वो कहीं पे पूरा जो है यानी कि उससे पूरा जो है वो किया जा सके। या अंडरग्राउंड इस तरह के जो है वो पूल्स होने चाहिए जहाँ पर जो है ना जो आपके ज़मीन के नीचे की पानी का एक लेवल होता है उसको जो है वो पूरा किया जा सके, ताकि आने वाले टाइम में जो उस पानी को यूटिलाइज जो है वो किया जाए। तो हल निकालने की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि क्लाइमेट जो है और हालात जो हैं वो किसी भी टाइम जो है वो आज के वक्त बदल सकते हैं। इवन कि मैं कुछ कंट्रीज़ की डॉक्यूमेंट्रीज बहुत देर पहले देख रहा था, उसमें जैसे ड्रिपिंग इरिगेशन की जो है वो बात की जा रही थी। वो सिस्टम भी बहुत सारे कंट्रीज़ में जो है ना वो कामयाब रहा है कि भाई वो एक एक ड्रॉप करके पानी जो है वो गिरता रहता है, पानी वेस्ट नहीं होता, और वो कहीं हवा में से नमी को ही अब्जॉर्व करके ना इन सिस्टम कुछ इस तरह का जो है वो लगाया जाता है। अरे नहीं, वो पानी जो है होती है ना जो टेक्नोलॉजी वहाँ पे यूज़ होती है वो हवा में से ही नमी को अब्जॉर्व करता है तो पानी में कन्वर्ट करता है।
वाओ, तो फिर इसका मतलब सोल्यूशन तो है, बट उसको
इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर
इम्प्लीमेंट करना वो गवर्नमेंट का काम है। और मुझे लगता है कि वाकई में क्योंकि अगर हम लोग देखें तो इंडिया का काफ़ी बड़ा जो हिस्सा है वो डिपेंड ही इसी पे करता है कि लाइक एग्रीकल्चर पर डिपेंड करता है, और उसमें इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होना तो फिर तो बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी भी है। क्योंकि अक्सर आप बहुत सारी न्यूज़ जो हैं वो किसान जो हैं उनसे रिलेटेड भी सुनते हैं। पाकिस्तान की अगर बात करें, पाकिस्तान में भी मुझे लगता है कि सेम इस तरह की टेक्नोलॉजी जो है वो इस्तेमाल करनी चाहिए, ताकि जो खेती है उसके लिए, क्योंकि अगर हम लोग इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, बांग्लादेश इस पूरी सरजमीन की बात करें तो मुझे लगता है कि वो बहुत ही फर्टाइल लैंड है,
बिल्कुल।
और एग्जैक्टली लोग बहुत ज़्यादा डिपेंड भी करते हैं इन चीज़ों पर कि सब्जियां उगाना, फसलों पर बेसिकली। तो मुझे लगता है कि इस चीज़ में, इस क्षेत्र में तो एटलीस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर होना चाहिए।
इंडिया, पाकिस्तान, बांग्लादेश की अगर बात की जाए तो ऑलमोस्ट हर साल जो है ना हम फ्लड सीज़न जो है उसको फेस जो है वो करते हैं। यानी ये कुछ
इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर भी तो नहीं है ना फिर हमारे पास।
नहीं, कुछ दिन ऐसे नहीं, देखें फ्लड एक बहुत नेचुरल चीज़ है, आता है, लेकिन उसका पानी जो है वो स्टोर किया जा सकता है। इनकी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, वाकई आपके वाली बात है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर उस तरह का हो ना कि पानी को, हालांकि बहुत ज़्यादा डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज भी ऐसे हैं जहाँ पर जो है वो बाढ़ आती है, नहीं पानी जो है वो संभाला जाता, पानी बहुत ज़्यादा तबाही जो है वो मचाता है, लेकिन कोशिश की जा सकती है।
वैसे मेरा मानना ये है कि जो नेचुरल डिजास्टर होता है ना, आप वाकई में उसके साइड इफेक्ट से बच नहीं सकते, बट उसको कम कर सकते हैं वो किस तरीके से, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बिल्ड करके। अगर हम लोग यही सोचते रहे ना कि नेचुरल डिजास्टर आएगा, तबाही होगी और हम कुछ करें ना, तो फिर तो तबाही ज़्यादा होगी, फिर उससे आपके सोल्यूशंस नहीं निकलते। बाकी कमेंट सेक्शन में आप ज़रूर बताइएगा कि आपका क्या कहना है इसके बारे में। मिलेंगे नेक्स्ट टाइम, सब्सक्राइब करना भूलना।